Senator Van Hollen, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Capitol Review. So let's first start with the biggest announcement for Marylanders. That's capacity restrictions to eat, shop, and work out have all been lifted. And actually, the president of the Montgomery County Council told us local leaders and local health officers were blindsided by it. So what about you? Were you surprised by Governor Hogan's announcement to fully reopen businesses?
Well, I heard about it through a press release, and I heard about it through, county leaders and others saying that they learned about it through the press as well. And each of them, those county leaders are going to have to make decisions as to what's in the best interests of the people in each of their jurisdictions. Obviously, we'd all like to open up as soon as possible, consistent with safety, and everyone wants to move in that direction. But we should do this at least in collaboration, coordination, and I was surprised to see this was a sort of announcement by press release rather than coordination with county leaders, the folks that are going to ultimately have to implement these decisions.
And following that, so why do you think Governor Hogan decided to reopen Maryland, even though there still are a number of confirmed cases and deaths in the state?
Well, look, the question of whether or not to reopen Maryland is one that obviously should be based on the science, on the health situation, and in talking with the experts. The governor is certainly within his rights to say that he wants to reopen Maryland, but you would think that a governor would confer with the local decision makers as well, who ultimately have the authority within each of their counties, and rather than blindside them on this question.
And Senator Van Hollen, let's talk about your work in Congress for Marylanders. The American Rescue Plan is out of Congress. People are going to get their $1,400 stimulus checks. Now, what are the other parts that are in it that's going to help us bounce back?
Well, there are three major categories. One is the help for families and workers, and you mentioned the $1,400 payments. In addition, there's a child tax credit of $3,000 for every child over a year period. We're going to try and make those come out in installment payments over the year. Of course, workers who lost their jobs because of the pandemic will get continued unemployment insurance at $300 per week through the first week in September. And then there are continuing help for small businesses through the Paycheck Protection Program. Restaurants that have been especially hard hit have their own source of funding. And then there's substantial funding for frontline workers, whether they're county workers or municipal workers. And so there's substantial and flexible funds to help local governments.
And during the pandemic, you were behind a number of legislations that a lot of people may not even hear about. So let's talk about some of them. So we know education for so many students was held back because of all the challenges from the pandemic. And you're actually working to support early career researchers who are affected. Tell us more about that.
Well, that's exactly right. This relief package includes additional funds for our schools, and those are badly needed and important to helping get kids back into the classroom more quickly and safely. But we also want to make sure that early education, in addition to K through 12, receives the support it needs. And one of the things that has suffered, of course, is our kids' education. That's true for K through 12, but it's also true for early education. And we want to make sure that we're able to continue to support Head Start and those who provide health Head Start learning possibilities. So this bill contains resources to make sure that that happens.
And you also reintroduced legislation called Promoting Infrastructure by Protecting Our Subcontractors and Taxpayers Act. Break that down for us. Simplify it. How is this bill supposed to save taxpayer money?
Well, in a nutshell, when you have major transportation projects, and especially these public-private partnerships, we want to make sure that taxpayers are protected if, for example, one of the contractors is unable to perform. And so this is a bipartisan bill, and it requires essentially a bonding requirement, a surety bond, so that if you're doing one of these gigantic projects taxpayers' funds are protected.
Senator, we know you've had a busy couple of weeks. Thank you so much for being here and for your time.
Well, thanks for covering all these issues. Take care.
Right after the break, we'll talk with a member of the GOP on why they voted against the American Rescue Plan.